Hey everyone, it is Q&A Tuesday time where I answer questions from you guys. Before I start, I'm going to remind you that if you want to ask me questions, you can always do so in the comments of videos, but if you want to ask me questions specifically for these Q&A videos, I will prompt usually like a few days to a week before I make the video on my Facebook or my Twitter, so you can add me there. And another reminder, I now have an email that you can email me like more in-depth questions or any kind of like professional related inquiry like, would you translate this thing for me? Or can I cite you in my YouTube video? So now to the questions. On Twitter, @ShayamMelvin asked, could you touch upon how quickly a pro translator should be able to translate in terms of characters per hour, day, etc.? I don't know. That's the short answer. I'm just one pro translator and I don't know, everyone has different speeds. But I did make a video that kind of touches upon that a while ago. Questions that you should ask yourself when you're trying to set a translating rate. And basically it doesn't matter so much how fast you are. Companies aren't going to necessarily, I mean, they're going to ask you how many characters you can translate in a day. They're usually very, concerned about that because they want to know, like, oh, can I assign her a 10,000 character job that's due a week from now? Will she be able to do it on time? So it's very important that you give yourself a lot of timed tests with different kinds of material and just find out generally how many characters or words you can translate per day. And then also whittle that down per hour and just generally find out how long it takes you to translate. If nothing else, so that if you are assigned, a potential task and they say, hey, it's this many characters and it's due this day, can you do it? You can figure out if you actually can do it by the deadline. But then it's also important to figure out if the rate that they're going to pay you per character or word is worth your time. So if you need a ballpark figure, I'm atypical. I hear I'm actually quite fast, but I can translate about 30,000 Japanese characters per day, which works out to about 15,000 English words. And that's like a hard day's work for me. That's like if I work about 7 to 8 hours in the day, and usually I don't. I usually work like 4 hours a day. But I'm translating, it's easy material. At least it's easy for me. It's mostly conversational stuff. It's fiction. It's difficult in that I have to word things nicely and make it sound good, which you don't necessarily have to do as much for technical translations. But yeah, that's my output daily. Like I said, this isn't a contest. It really only matters that you can complete the job by the deadline and that you are getting paid a reasonable wage. And also note that you will get faster as you improve. @Frederick asks, what can I say in my CV to start getting jobs when I don't have any professional experience translating? This is a dilemma for pretty much any field. You need experience to get the job, but how can you get experience if you don't have experience? I was lucky. If you haven't heard my origin story, I was translating for a fan subbing group that turned into a legit company. So then I already had that legit company experience that I could then put on my CV resume when applying to other legit professional companies. What you have to remember though is even if you haven't had like translating experience, you might have had some other experience that's somehow related to it. Like maybe you've had some foreign language teaching experience or tutoring experience, writing experience of any kind, because translating is writing, or anything related to the type of material that you're hoping to translate. Like if you're hoping to translate business stuff, like maybe intern for a company of any kind that does businessy stuff. Internships are also, of course, a thing. Everyone will say, yeah, you can be an intern. I think the whole internship thing is pretty shitty. Like it's basically ways of companies to have free slave labor, especially if it's unpaid internship. But hey, it does give you experience, so there is that. There's a person with a parrot on his hand walking outside my window. That's kind of cool. Basically, I'm not an expert on this subject, so if you just Google how do you get a job without experience, or like how to make your resume look good without experience, you'll find a lot of helpful tips out there. Okay, so from Facebook, Adam Taylor Torres asks, do you ever go to any translation conferences? Nope. I only recently discovered that those were a thing. I saw them advertised on pros.com like a year ago. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess there would be translation conferences. I guess those would be a thing. No, I have not. I don't know if I ever will, to be honest. Yeah, I feel if I were to go to conferences for networking purposes, I would be much more likely to go to an anime con. And actually, that is probably in the cards for me sometime in the future. It's been like, God, almost 20 years since I last went to a con, an anime con. And, maybe I should go to one of those in the future. Okay, Tori asked 3 questions. The first question is, would you consider living in Japan in the future? I did consider it when I was 24 and finishing up my BA because I heard about the JET program, and I was considering moving there at least for 1 to 3 years to teach English through JET. Number of things happened that prevented me from doing that. The main thing is I severely broke my thumb and needed complicated surgery, and like the whole process for recovery would be months. So that just kind of threw things off, and that never happened. Now though, moving to Japan, like if it were just me and if I didn't have cats or a partner, maybe. But I have cats and a partner, so I would only move to Japan if my cats could come with me and if my partner would be like okay with it, but not just okay with it, but like happy about it. Like I know he would follow me wherever I go, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to make him miserable. So yeah, I'd have to be able to take my cats, my partner would have to be cool with it, and in addition, I'd have to have like some specific reason for moving there, probably like a job offer. I don't think I would just move there on a whim for no real reason other than that I like Japan. But I am long overdue for a visit to Japan at the very least, and I have an open invitation from friends in Ehime, come visit us anytime, and like I have an open invitation, like come visit me in America anytime. So that will probably happen within the next couple years or so. But moving to Japan, Okay, her second question, are there other fields of translation, medical, legal, financial, technical, etc., that you're interested in? None of the fields that were listed in the parentheses, no. I don't find legal or financial or technical interesting in the slightest. I find them terribly boring. Medical, some aspects of it I find interesting, like nutrition or kinesiology. Dermatology, I like pimple popping videos. But yeah, if I'm not interested in the subject matter, I don't really want to translate it. And it's more than just not being interested in it. Like, I don't know about these subjects. I'm not knowledgeable about legal, financial, technical, medical. I don't even know those words in English. I'd have to look them up in Japanese, and then even after I translate them into English, I wouldn't know what I just did. So I'd have to learn a lot more to be any good at that kind of translating, and I just don't want to learn about those things because they bore me to tears. But there are other fields that I would be interested in translating that are nonfiction, such as like travel. I would be very interested in translating travel brochures, travel websites. And my laundry's ready. I'll finish answering this question first. I would be interested in translating travel brochures, travel websites, travel videos, documentaries. Actually, I did translate a travel documentary series about Tokyo a few years ago, and I found that incredibly interesting. Documentaries, I find those interesting in general. Like, if you could present the information to me, like, visually with a narrator talking and people with dialogue, then it's a little more interesting to me. Cooking or food-related stuff, also, I would be super, super interested in translating something like that. But yeah, if it's a subject that I'm knowledgeable about and or am interested in, or if it is fictional or creative in some way, then I'm interested in translating it. But if it's none of those things, then I'm not. Okay, and then her third question, would you like to have children in the future? Nope. Seriously though, I've never been interested in having children, and I'm currently not interested in having children. In the future, I might be interested in having children, because you don't know what the future holds. But based off of the fact that I have never been interested in it and currently am not interested in it, I probably won't be in the future. And from the YouTube comments section, Billy Explains asks 2 questions. So the first question is, what are the things that you liked and you didn't like about Japan and Japanese people? Oh man, that's a broad question. One of the things I liked and didn't like. I guess the main thing that I liked about them is also kind of the main thing I didn't like about them. And it's their whole putting the group first and the individual behind the group. So that's a good thing. I like Japanese people for that because it makes them very considerate about other people's feelings. They're all very polite. They're very kind and nice and gracious and giving. They're just considerate. Like you never have to worry about people being rude to you or yelling at you across the street in public. Well, as a white person you do, because they'll be like, they'll be like, hello, because you're white and they want to be like, hello, gaijin. At least in the small town where I lived, that was a thing. But yeah, generally they all follow the rules. They all are, they all care about other people and making other people comfortable. I like that about Japanese people, but I also don't like that about Japanese people because it's kind of fake, right? You never know if people actually like you or if they're just putting up with you. And yeah, that exists in every culture. We all like put up a front and like act polite to people when we don't really mean it. While I like that they have this social hierarchy and this, rules everyone has to follow to be good citizens, and while it keeps their streets clean and their crime super low, at the same time, it stifles people's individuality, which I guess as an American, that makes me go, you gotta be an individual, you gotta express yourself, otherwise it's tyranny. America, fuck yeah! But yeah, I feel like it's harder to really get to know Japanese people. I don't know though, like, is that really a negative? Do I really dislike that? Because I'm difficult to get to know in person. And I don't like people like getting in my face and like telling me their life story when I first meet them. So I guess I like that about Japanese people. I guess it just sort of makes me sad that they have these rules that they have to follow. And the second question is, and if someone loves the Japanese language and studying 3 hours daily, how long does it take to be fluent in it? Yeah, I get asked this a lot, like, how long does it take to be fluent? How many hours a day do you have to study? It's often framed that way, like how many hours a day do you have to study? And there is no simple one-size-fits-all answer for that. Everyone is different. People have different levels of language aptitude. It matters how you're studying too. If you're just reading a textbook for 3 hours a day, like for some people that super works, but for a lot of people that doesn't work. It would not work for me, for example. I do not retain information if I just read it from a textbook. I get bored and my mind starts wandering and thinking about other things. And then that also depends on what your definition of fluency is. Does fluent mean that you're having that you can say anything that you want, like using a dictionary and then you can understand anything that anyone says to you as long as you have a dictionary? Or do you mean like rapid fire back and forth conversation about any subject, no matter how advanced? That's like varying degrees of fluency. And like I said, it varies for everyone. For me personally, I felt like I felt like I was at that point where I could say just about anything I wanted to and understand anything that anyone said to me as long as I had a dictionary or time to kind of work it out in my brain. I got to that point probably like 7 months into my year of living in Japan. But that was after 2 years of high school Japanese, where I'd say I studied, I don't know, like maybe a half hour a day, if even that. I took Japanese class about 50 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and I didn't really study much outside of class, but I did watch a lot of anime, which is studying in a way, and then when I stayed in Japan for the first 6 months or so, I was fully immersed and listening to Japanese all day, basically, and I never spoke English because I didn't have any English-speaking friends there. And the internet wasn't really a thing yet, so I couldn't easily chat with people on Discord back at home like I could now. I had to make international phone calls, which were really expensive. So yeah, I have no idea. Okay, that was all the questions for this Q&A Tuesday. If you have any other questions, you can leave them in the comments here. It is not entirely likely that I will remember to check these comments by the time I make another one of these videos, so again, add me on the Facebook or the Twitter and you can ask me questions there when I prompt you. Also, hey, I have a second channel. On said second channel, I make videos that are not related to Japanese translating, anime, etc. I've been uploading a lot of cooking and food-related videos. And also, I wrote a novel 10 years ago, and if I get 100 subscribers on my second channel by the end of November, I will make a video of myself reading the first chapter of that novel. So if you love cringe fests, you should subscribe to that channel. I only have 40 subscribers now as of making this video, so I'm not sure it's gonna happen, but we'll see. And hey, if you live in the United States like I do, you should vote today if you haven't already.